Okay, sir. A very good afternoon to one and all. Myself, Divya Tyagi. Currently, I'm a PhD research scholar in the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, and I'm the moderator of this session. And on behalf of my department, I welcome you all to this national webinar on tribal life of India, insiders and outsiders perspective, part second, 8th session. Before I begin, I take this opportunity to thank our HOD sir, Professor Patnaik sir, for giving us this platform to attend and participate on various views about tribal life. And of course, Venkat sir for all the technical support throughout every session. So in today's schedule, we have 5 papers, but 3 paper presenters were there. Firstly, Shashank Shekhar, followed by Dr. R.V. Vipin, and then we have Dr. Rupali Sharma. All right, so before we begin, some gentle reminders to paper presenters are as follows. Speakers are requested to introduce themselves before they begin their papers. They will be given 20 minutes to present their paper, and after 15 minutes, there will be reminder about the remaining time. After 20 minutes of their paper presentation, I will take up the queries and questions from the chat box, for which 10 minutes will be given for discussion. Listeners needed to post their queries, feedbacks, questions, and observation strictly into the chat box, and there will be no verbal communication between the speaker and listeners. All the listeners are requested to keep their mic on mute throughout the session. And so now, without any further delay, I welcome our first speaker, Shashank Shekhar, who will be talking about myth, stories, effects of pandemic, a study in context to tribes of India. Over to you, Shashank. You can start your video and present your paper.
Thank you, Divya. Greetings to all one and all present here. Myself, Shashank Shekhar, pursuing MP from the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies. So I will be presenting my paper on myths and stories associated with pandemic, a study in context to tribal life in India. So I'll begin by sharing my screen. Okay. Visible to everyone?
Yes, Shashank.
Okay. So I'll start here. The topic of my paper is Myths and Stories of Pandemic, a study in context to tribal life in India. So I'll begin. So I'll start with the introduction. The place where science is much every ritual, custom, and tradition is followed by a set of logic that may or may not be right to us, but certainly to them. The whole community is governed by unique regulations that are intrinsic to that tribe, and everyone has to abide by them. Such a place is known as tribe, and the people are called tribals. This time they have been given different names such as native people, aboriginal, First Nations, Adivasis, Anusuchit Janjati, hunter-gatherers, hill tribes, all hinting toward their indigeneity. So yeah, the framers of the constitution took note of the fact that certain communities in India were suffering from extreme social, educational, and economic backwardness. Regarding their interests and for their socio-economic development. These communities were notified as scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, as per provision contained in the clause 1 of Article 341 and 342 of the Constitution, respectively. Out of the two scheduled tribes are the autochthonous or native people of the land, who are believed to be the earliest settler in the Indian peninsula. To be more specific, they are the aboriginal people of the land, surviving for a long time. In ancient and medieval literature, several tribes existing at that time have been mentioned. For example, Bhil, Kol, and Gond are three major Indian tribes that have been widely acknowledged in the epic Ramayana, particularly in the portion Ayodhya Kanda and Kishkinda Kanda. Similarly, in Mahabharata, several tribal communities like Yadh Raja participated in war from both Kauravas and Pandavas' side. However, the life of the tribal population has never been plain sailing. One of the basic problems is its slow recognition, which has given rise to further problems such as habitat facilities and climate, and had made them vulnerable. There have been several attempts to uplift them both by the government and the writers, so much so that there is a separate literature or a tradition for them. Lots of research is being conducted on a variety of tribal subjects, like the ancient text, which existed with us in oral form. Tribal literature or Adivasi Sahitya, we can say, is also available mostly in the form of songs and dance. These songs have been orally transmitted from one generation to the another and have survived for a long time. In this process, a lot many forms of folk songs are lost forever. A lot many tribal writers have emerged on the scene who are helping surface the tribal life and voicing their concerns. Such writers can be classified into two types. The first one, who belongs to the tribal community and took a pain to raise their concerns for the tribal communities. Insider perspectives. The second, who are non-tribals but feel for tribal deeply and write about them whether through fiction or non-fiction. They give outsiders perspective of tribal life. Significant among those are Mahasweta Devi, Gopinath Mohandi, Susila Saman, Timshula Au, Mamang Dai, Alice Ekka, Eshi Dorje, etc. The glory of the mainstream literature of the country lies in the fact that it accepts oral or folk as a complementary, as it gives complete picture of Indian culture and thought. Also, it presents a diversified picture of the country's rich and varied heritage. So yeah, the above topic induces a curiosity in us about how can endemic and pandemic spread to the tribal population if they are confined to a particular region, surviving aloof from the rest of the world. Well, the scenario is not always like that. As per the Ghori 11 popular debate, the tribals can be classified into three groups. The first one is those who don't want to change despite their interaction with the non-tribal societies. The second, those who want to completely isolate themselves from non-tribal societies. And the last one, who are willing to assimilate with non-tribal societies. Ghori was in favor of the latter, where Elvin stood for the second kind. Hence, some tribes have interaction beyond their communities. For instance, several tribes group work in industries and factories, small or big, or in several schemes run by due to this in contact with non-tribals. For the procurement of essentials, they have to come in open market. Also, since they derive their nutrition from nature, sometimes their practice of killing animals or harnessing nature beyond certain limits invite the situation of endemic and pandemic. Here, I would like to quote certain examples from The Smell of Bamboo Blossom by Yesek Doji Thongchi, which is a short story by him. So yeah, this story depicts the spread of plague among a particular tribal community by excessive killing of rats. The old persons of the community take it as some kind of curse inflicted upon them by God due to their misdeeds, or there is and there is no escape of it. So fast, I would like to quote this statement of Douglas here, who said, I quote, people have an epistemic need to know the truth, and they also have an existential need to feel safe. In times of crisis, these needs are unmet, so conspiracy theory can seem appalling. In addition, during pandemic, most people are spending time at home searching online, finding answers to their curiosity and threats about which they have read, about which they have seen reports on television and the internet. To grow business and make money, several people indulge in creating false claims, misinformation, narratives, and rumor mongering on social media. This news achieves a high level of currency. It is important for government to work against fear, dread, and anxiety, and for us to not believe anything that we frequented on social networks. So yeah, whenever such kind of infectious disease attacks the human population, the myth-making, stories, and attributing supernatural elements become the center part of debate, such as it is a god wish or some kind of curse has inflicted upon us due to misdeeds of our previous birth. This tradition of myth-making is also popular among non-tribals, as we have seen in this COVID pandemic. The impact of such a pandemic is lasting, as it used to engulf the entire village or population of a particular region. However, due to advancement in medical sciences, mainstream society is capable of preventing such mishaps to certain extent. But the condition is still pitiable in tribal areas due to unavailability of resources, healthcare facilities, medicines, and doctors. Most of the tribals still rely on incantations and the traditional way of curing. Sometimes it helps, but often severe ones are fatal. Yase Dorje Thongchi, an Assamese writer, brings to life the customs and rituals of many tribes and their interaction with modernity. Though this short story, written by him and translated by Aruni Kashyap, he depicts the conflict between the two and a couple to Chingi and Dado tribe lived with their grandfather Matang Barha, a person believing in superstition. So I'll quote some conversation between them. Go and doctor, you will be fine. Tarak shouted. The old man screamed from inside. There is no point on going to the doctor. When someone gets this disease, they have to be burnt alive inside the house. Otherwise, it spreads. I have killed many such patients along with their houses, and I have burnt my mother, father, brothers, and sisters alive because they had rat disease. The above conversation reflects the clash between tradition and modernity, as how hard it is for the old age people to accept the fact that the rat disease is nothing but a plague that can be cured after proper care. The only solution they see is in self-destruction, which used to be in their time. On the other hand, it should be noticed that the younger generation is willing to accept the changes. They no longer believe in superstitions. I'll quote some of their conversation which hint us toward this. It was you who said that bamboo blossom would lead to famine. People would starve to death. Hundreds of people would die of diseases. But see, nothing happened. She would make fun of the old man. It will happen. People will die and entire villages will perish. It hasn't been long since the bamboo started to lower. You wait and see. It will happen. No, grandpa. No, nothing like that will happen. This is the age of harangs, the age of Bangini simpletons from the hills are over. That's why when bamboos bloom, famines and epidemics don't take place. On the contrary, this is the age to become rich. We can see in above conversation between Matang Barha and Meda how any endemic pandemic is anticipated with myths in the tribal community. Often their arguments are backed by the sin of past birth or the unconventional ways of the present generation. Here, killing of rats by Tarak Dado. Another story by Tara Shankar Banerjee with the title Boatman Army depicts the deep association of tribal community with nature and how a slight change in it could be an omen for them. I'll quote a line from it. Look, said Tarini, the ants are going up the trees with their eggs in their mouth. It's going to rain, I'm sure. The above statement is made by a tribal who is indulged in the occupation of for quite a long time, leading to drought and thus leaving him unemployed. Tarini, along with his wife, has moved from their native place, and when he sees this phenomenon, he decides to go back to where he belongs. As predicted by him, incessant rain caused floods and engulfed several villages. These instincts develop naturally after living in the vicinity of nature for a long time. Also, tribal people don't have modern technologies, scientists, and internet like people living in mainstream. They have to find a ways to know about the upcoming consequences and the ways to cope up with them. Hence, they are a keen observer of nature. These myths are usually passed from one generation to another. A pandemic like COVID was an unexpected event for all of us. Fear, anxiety, and paranoia can emerge during a pandemic. They can render people vulnerable, and absurd theories and governmental responses to them. It can also lead people to give credence to simplistic and unscientific interpretations and medications and practices which are claimed to be prevent and treat or cure disease. In turn, such vulnerability further aggravates the situation. It creates panic. History is evident that eruption of quackery during the Russian flu and the Spanish flu is inevitable. The emergence of 2020 spurious claims during the COVID-19 pandemic was widespread. Its resultant global impact has dramatically altered people's daily life. For the most of the year of 2020 as well as 2021, it has taken a toll on every aspect of human life, from health system to economics and society in general. The mental and psychological disruption caused by pandemic is devastating. There is a havoc and chaos all around. People and children have forced to stay inside the home to prevent its spread. Amidst all this, several myth-making and misinterpretations became part of our life. In mainstream society, there are several sources to bust out myths to reach to the actual. But in tribal community, they have to live with it for a considerable time, which sometimes becomes their part of life. Myths spread more rapidly as compared to the facts. As it is a word of mouth, people believe it quickly without any thought as compared to the other modes of communication such as newspaper or television. A section of people continues to believe in myth even after knowing the reality. So yeah, the first myth is COVID-19 is a black magic, which was prevalent in tribal communities. Tribals were not aware of this outbreak of the COVID pandemic in the starting. The attempts by villagers to spread information on COVID pandemic has fallen on deaf ears. A large part of tribal believe that viruses were nothing but a spirit possessing people. In the absence of any proper explanation, they went to Quakers instead of doctors. It also arises from the mistrust among the people against science and government. Also, the people are given only half of the facts by the government. Hence, curiosity of people to know more is utilized by the evil indulge in dishonest practices and claims to have a special knowledge and a skill in some fields. Typically medicine. The tribal areas have limited hospital and medical facilities, which are mostly utilized by people when suffering from severe illness. For primary treatment, they most seek the advice of Quakers, Ojhas, or Pandits. So the second myth is infertility myths from vaccination. Due to the resistance toward the vaccination drives in tribal areas by tribal communities, especially housewives, non-agricultural tribals, and the non-working populations such as students and the old, the vaccination isn't up to the mark, leaving them vulnerable to the upcoming waves of COVID pandemic. The underlying threat is that the government is trying to make them infertile and impotent. Thus, they'll vanquish these tribes and seize their land for industries and factories. This has prevented many youths from taking the vaccine. Another survey by 19-year-old girl, Binal from Badodra, who covered about over 180 villages in her tribal home district of Chota Udaipur in 4 months since the beginning of vaccination drive, spoke to the members of Rathwa tribe about these issues, and the vaccination disclosed, I quote, they reply that if I take a job, I will die if I take a jab, I will die in 5 years. They have this rigid mindset that injections kill you and vaccination are not for your good. The moment they see any health workers, they believe that they have been sent to kill the locals. There is a deep-rooted mistrust among the people against science and government. She further says that tribal would often lie if asked whether you have taken a vaccine or not. After asking twice or thrice, they will open up only if you win their confidence. She also mentions that tribals are slowly opening to the vaccination and beginning to understand the gravity of illness, but a lot of work goes in making them listen to you. This is one good sign for us. Still, a lot needs to be done. It will be achieved by collective effort, not solely by an individual. We need to train volunteers from tribal communities so that their community can trust their people, and slowly people will follow. It is true that we are hesitant at first accepting something, be it any product. The same was the case with the vaccine of COVID-19. The other myth prevalent in mainstream society where COVID vaccine can make you magnetic, can your immune system toward other diseases, can alter our DNA, etc. So the third myth is tribals are not likely affected by the pandemic. So yeah, indigenous people existing in remote areas are extremely vulnerable to coronavirus disease. It is the social and environmental factors that plays a key role in making them more susceptible to outbreaks, as said by anthropologists. For instance, while living away from the mainstream society, their body doesn't get the necessary immunity against the diseases. Even weaker viruses have sometimes devastating impacts on them. According to Ambika Thakur, a practicing doctor, indigenous people get sick faster, develop severe symptoms in the absence of medicine, even before the body creates antibody cell, and are much more likely to die from the infectious disease. Thus, one can say that their body is equally more vulnerable to those of people living mainstream. The Union Ministry of Home Affairs has categorized 25 indigenous groups as PVTs, particularly vulnerable tribal group, the highest number of whom are found in Odisha. However, This idea was countered by Carlos Coimbra, an epidemiologist at the Oswald Cruz Foundation in the Rio de Janeiro, who says the idea that indigenous people are somehow biologically more vulnerable to new disease is a myth. According to Coimbra, when new virus enters an immunologically naive population, it spreads rapidly. We have seen that in the case of measles and the Pete surui. Today, vaccines and regular contact with non-indigenous people have boosted indigenous people's immunity to measles, influenza, and other diseases. He further adds that COVID-19 is new to the entire world, thus complicating the situation for the indigenous people. It is true that in the first wave, a section of people also died from the hype and fear of coronavirus than from the virus itself. As far as Coimbra logic is concerned, all the tribal communities are not associated with the mainstream. Hence, there are the chances of virus spreading to their community, and once it spreads, it's hard to control because the reason is that their way of living. Their housing is congested, which makes it easier for disease to spread from one person to the other. Also, don't have access to adequate first aid, such as masks, sanitizer, and medicines. So now we'll move up to the conclusion. To tackle these issues, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs launched a campaign to boost COVID-19 vaccination among the tribal population in the country to protect the most vulnerable groups. Arjun Munda, Chief of Tribal Affairs, virtually launched the COVID Tika Sank Surakshit Van Dhan or Udham campaign to safeguard the livelihoods of the tribal communities, including health, particularly from pandemic. He said that steps would be taken to promote livelihood with health in tribal areas. Fast track the activities of one Van Dhan Vikas Kendra and ramp up the process of inculcating the population that is engaged in procurement, processing, and marketing of handlooms, handicrafts, and forest produces. The campaign focuses on the reassurance, pride, and self-efficacy. It will highlight the three keys: Jivan, Jivika, and Jagrukta. It is also essential for the community to provide it promptly and consistently with comprehensible, scientifically based information to make sound therapeutic in the best interest. So here I would like to show this visible to all of you, which is the tribal's voice. Let's see if I'm able to play this video. It's coming on YouTube.
Shashank, are you waiting for your video to be played?
It's just only for 2 minutes. Oh.
Okay.
So this is it. Yeah, so this.
Okay. Thank you, Shashank, for your wonderful presentation, giving us detailed insight about tribal life during pandemic situations. So let me check the chat box if there is a question for you. Yes, we have a question from Debanjali Bhattacharya. What text of Tarashankar Banerjee did you refer?
Yeah, it's a short story by Tarashankar Banerjee with the title Boatman Army. I'll send you the text.
Okay, other were just the compliments for you for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, Shashank. Now you can switch off your video and we can move on to next paper presenter. All right, now we move to our next paper presenter. I would like to welcome Dr. Rupali Sharma. She will be presenting on voicing the voiceless and analysis of the silent subaltern in Mahashweta Devi's Shoti Munda and his arrow. Over to you, ma'am. Now you can present your paper.
Very good afternoon to one and all. The title of my paper, as we have already know, voicing the voiceless, an analysis of the silent subaltern in Mahashweta Devi's Choti Munda and his arrows. Basically, I have not prepared any presentation, so I am giving you the crux of my paper. Mahashweta Devi's Choti Munda and his arrow is one of the most outstanding novel, originally written in Bengali as Choti Munda Otati tree in 1980, and it was a very good example of the rising of the tribal consciousness. The English translation is done by Gayatri Spivak in year 2002. The novel has dealt with the reality of the society and the issues of the contemporary interest have been included by the novelist with utmost care. The character of Shoti Munda is very popular and it is considered as one of the symbolic characters as far as tribal literature is concerned. The condition of the tribal people is very difficult and the forests are being demolished in huge amount, which makes their lives even more difficult. But if the consciousness is raised, then these difficulties can be solved or maybe fight against. There is a growing tribal consciousness which can certainly help in coping up this big issue. The novelist has tried to show exactly this in this novel, and it is done with a feeling and sensitivity on her part, as she is well aware of this situation. Shoti Munda is a kind of anti-hero of the novel, Shoti Munda and his arrows. He approaches Dani in order to learn the art of shooting arrows successfully. However, Dani acquaints him with the forest only to ensure that Munda will not die of starvation. Munda is basically the tribes of that particular area. He has said to Munda that he had taken part in many agitation in order to make sure that people of Munda will find a village to do farming and other tribal will follow them. Dani just wants Choti Munda to decide that he will take back and the land owned by money lenders, Diku police, in order to assert the tribal rights on the. Munda is a name of a tribe, and the member of these tribes are simple, straightforward, honest, and trustworthy. Dukhiya is from Munda tribe, and he kills Gusmata by cutting his hand because Gusmata abuses him and also knock off his basket full of chilies. It really makes Dukhiya angry, and he ultimately kills him. However, the main thing to notice here is the fact that Dukhiya surrendered himself to police. However, the main thing to notice here, unlike urban people, he admits his crime without regret that he has killed Gumasata, although his lawyer advises him not to do so. He says, why should I quote, why should I say I have not killed? I killed before hundreds of people. In the city, The people of other castes run away after killing someone. No, not even one Munda is seen escaping after murdering someone. However, it could be noticed that Mahajans are the masters of the Mundas and their tribes. As their tribal people work hard for Mahajans as bonded laborers, the fact here is that this tribe is truthful, hardworking, and very reliable people, but they are not free. They work for other and they are quite unfortunate. Bharat Munda says, as I quote, no house to live, not even a piece of land, all is bound. Even after 10 generations, no Munda has anything to claim it as his own. Education is the only thing that can change the condition of any tribe, but education is not available for Munda tribe because Munda people are always considered as a bonded labor. To Munda people, as they do not get chance to go to school, if anyhow he goes to school, the teacher demotivates them. They says, as I quote, go graze the cattle. Education is not for Munda. Only the children of Brahmin, Lala, and Kashaya will study. Choti Munda has not been worried by the plight of the tribal. The level of understanding that he has is extraordinary and he is full of consciousness. He is the one who put Mundas, Pusats, and Ganjus together so that they all can face the famine and other challenges together, which was imposed upon them by Dipus. He also knows the reality of the society and understands that the exploitation and oppression are the part and the parcel of the society as they are rooted deeply in the social system. He also believes that government is not ready to accept the normal relationship between the official class and the oppressed people. The Diku are the ones who do not even consider the tribal as Indians. Choti Munda even finds that the tribal zones exist as island of slavery. The tribal development officer under the tribal welfare scheme are also useless and unrealistic as far as Choti's opinion is concerned. Choti rightly says that the tribal people hardly manage to get food for 2 times a day as they are struggling hard to get out of the grip of the greedy and profit monger landlords and contractors. He also questions that how can these people have attitude and time for handicrafts? The culture of the rise of thugs, murderers, and the activists of ruling party under the banner of young youth organization have risen and are found to be kind of a different political culture by Shoti Munda. Here, there is a character of Romeo is talked about as he roams around the Gundas and attack a tribal village. Villagers run away in order to save their lives. Romeo too extorts money from the Mahajans and industries. He in this particular novel is considered as Robin Hood. Thus, he is a terror to everyone. On the other hand, Choti Munda is of the opinion that the decision of the government to abolish bonded labor is meaningless because it will not be understood by these tribal people for so many reasons. However, the landlords and the money lenders take the help of youth leader like Romeo in order to pay low wages to the tribal laborers. Eventually, Choti Munda emerges as a voice of the tribal consciousness. However, he is a supporter with the non-violence and he too saves the lives of Daroga. He does not support violence because he advocates the things like the safety, security, and the survival of the tribals and untouchables. He also supports the need of the women honor, and therefore he shoots arrow towards Romeo and also kills Pahalwan because of the honor of the women. Upon killing them, Choti Munda surrenders himself to SDO. When people came to know this, the thousands of them shout, no. The protest is also supported by the people who belong to non-tribal community and they also raise their hands in protest. They do not like or do not want Choti Munda to surrender. However, the last time of the novel is very suggestive and also prophetic. Between Choti and SDO, the vacuum was filled by thousands of raised bows. Still, more thousands of raised hands seems to proclaim, be aware. However, the word be aware has its own significance as it is a warning to policemen, money lenders, and upper caste people. Thus, the novel is very good example of tribal consciousness, as well as at the same time it is also reflecting the oppression and the bonded labor. However, the other hidden element, these are also important, like upper caste age, the politics, the corruption, the problems faced by the tribal people, etc. However, the novel is very popular because of these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for acquainting us with your valuable knowledge. Let me see if there is any question for you. Right now, I don't see any question for you, but I have one question for you. As you have talked about the concept of bondage labor, since
Okay.
now it is the contemporary period and this has been banned by the government also. So I wanted to know whether this practice is still prevalent in this tribal communities.
Yes, ma'am. This practice is still prevalent in this particular society of Choti Munda, the Munda tribe, because as we have seen in various other movies and other things, these sorts of practices are still prevalent in the society.
Okay, ma'am. So had government haven't done anything yet to prevent this for this tribal communities? If you were aware of anything about that?
Ma'am, I don't have any idea, but as I have read an article related to that, government has made certain rules for the upliftment of these tribes, but still, but it is not been implemented on such tribes, on such areas.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for answering my question. As if now I don't see any question in the chat box for you. So thank you.
Thank you,
Now you
Divya.
can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. So now we move on to our next, the last paper presenter, Dr. R.V. Vipin. His paper is titled as Socio-Cultural Life of the Ponmai Nagas of Manipur. Sir, please switch on your video and you can present your paper now.
Okay, thank you for the time. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is R.V. Weapon. I just received my PhD degree recently from Field from Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, University of Delhi. I'm from Northeast Manipur State, and I belong to Pumai Naga tribe. Let me share my screen. Anyone? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, visible.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, sir, visible, but your voice is breaking in between.
Okay, thank you. I think my internet is not very good. Can I close my video? My internet is not very good.
Okay, sir.
Okay, the topic of my article is Socio-Cultural Life of the Pumai Nagas of Manipur. Introduction. Pumai ancestors did not have a written history, thus it is hard to ascertain the accurate time of its origin and migration. The only source to trace its origin and migration is folktales, folk songs, legends, and stories heard from old people. passed down from generation to generation through oral traditions. The other evidence is their usage of different ornaments in certain items like such as cowrie, conch, seashell, utensils, foods, drinks. Their can be only outlined in the form of monoliths, wooden trunks. Based on such oral traditions, Pumice assume that their ancestors migrated from the sacred land of Michael, the original site of Naga, along with spirit and tiger. As there was no written record, the origin and migration of Pumai Naga could not trace further than Michael, and thus it is considered that Michael was the final settlement after their long journey from some unknown places. One proof that they were seafarers is their use of seashells, such as conches and cowrie, as their ornaments and decoration. A glimpse of Pumai Naga folk life through their cultural and social life. The sources available about the ancestral socio-cultural life of Pumai Naga are folk songs, folk tales, legends, and proverbs. There is no written records about Pumai ancestral socio-cultural life. They start every activity with a festival and its rituals. And when there is a festival, they exchange their food and eat together. The owners slaughter cow or buffalo and distribute meat to every household when the villagers pulled Feast of Merit stone from the jungle. After they perform the Feast of Merit, they become more economical and work harder. They were ashamed to borrow paddy from others once they performed the Feast of Merit. Their culture of social shame has made them a better people and helps them more economical. They made their utensils such as pots, plates, cups. These utensils are made of bamboo and wood. They are self-reliant people and they export their products to the neighboring tribes. Since time immemorial, Pumai has its own unwritten lunar calendar. The village chief and the chief priest memorize the calendar. They count the date and month for the village. The chief counts the lunar calendar every month by observing rites and announces the villagers to perform religious rites, observe Jena. Jena means abstention from works as prohibition or taboo, and celebrate festivals according to their lunar month. Before they sow the seeds, they celebrate the seed sowing festival, where activities like sharing rice beer and meat and festival rites. According to Pumai custom, no one is allowed to ask for debt from their creditors during festivals, because their culture concerns the poor to celebrate the festival without any tension. Their culture and tradition forbid them to refuse when a poor person asks for paddy or meat during the festival. Thus, during festivals, poor people ask for paddy, rice, beer, and meat from the rich people. In this way, the poor people can also celebrate with the rich in all the festivals. Every Pumai village has its own traditional village gate. The newly established villages do not have a traditional village gate at the entrance of the village. Through the traditional village gate, the village can be identified whether the village existed before the arrival of Christianity in the Pumai region. Different villages have different village gates in number. Some Pumai villages have 6, 5, 4 according to the village households and population. All the Pumai indigenous villages construct traditional stone platforms in their village compound in the past. These stone platforms serve as a village community hall. These stone platforms were built on the raised ground to view the village and get sunlight in the morning before they go to the field and in the evening before the sunset. Women are taboo to step over the stone platform and sit with men folks. They believe that if women step over the stone platform during their monthly period, it brings misfortune to the village. Before they go to the field, they meet on the village stone platforms and spend time sharing their rice beer. Moreover, when they are back from the field in the evening, they gathered with their rice beer at the stone platform, spend time together narrating folk tales and sang folk song. The stone platforms serve as an opened village court or opened community hall. They held important meetings from this stone platform as there was no community hall. Furthermore, they discussed all the disputes and gave a verdict by the village council from this platform. The male members of a clan or an individual constructed the stone platforms to mark significant achievements, events, and boundaries. The construction of stone platforms within the village differ from village to village, and the bigger villages have more stone platforms. In the olden days, when men folks became old and retired from their daily work, they spent time together at the village stone platforms. From the stone platform, all in tradition to youngsters. In this way, they pass down their history, culture, belief, and customs from generation to generation. Z.K. Pasher, a renowned Pumai scholar, has rightly stated that in the absence of newspapers, the platform serves as a place of dissemination of news. Almost all male members would come there whenever they are free and interact with each other. Suggestions for the improvement of their society, personal observation of someone's life, dreams, events, and challenges were all part of the discussions. Hence, all the news and issues ranging from personal through the village and the world were discussed. Before modern institution was introduced in Pumai region, stone platform also served as an institution of learning like a dormitory. Stone platforms are not only serve as a recreational platform for the old folks. During festivals or any special occasions, they exchange rice beer, curry, and eat together from the stone platform. The unity of the village displayed through the stone platforms in the village compound. The united and wealthy villages have constructed more stone platforms. These stone platforms are still intact and preserved, though they do not hold the meeting and drink rice beer like in the past. Significant role of the priest or exorcist. In the olden days, sickness were believed to be the consequences of their misdeeds that anger their gods and punishes them. The only physicians available in the past were priests and exorcists. They healed the sick by performing certain rituals and sacrifices. In the olden days, when the Anglami, Mau, Maram, Ringma, Porchuri got sick, they went to Pumai priest and soothsayers to perform Pusuzi. Pusuzi means a ritual performed to rid the cause of the sickness for healing. They were asked to sacrifice by killing poor cow without defect in order to heal from their sickness. Few chosen people performed the Pusuzu ritual. The other way of animal sacrifice was the person who performed the Pusuzu asked the sick person to slaughter pig, cut it into pieces, and put it on the top of the door frame of the entire old people house in the village. When they put a piece of meat on the door frame, all people blessed the sick person to recover from his or her sickness. It is said that the sick person will be recovered. When the sick person sacrificed the animal, it is believed that the people share the sickness like pieces of meat. It is said that Pumai buffalo, cow, pig, cock are considered unique from the other tribes to slaughter as an offering to a deity. The close-knitted community-rent life of the Pumai Naga in a nutshell. One of the hallmarks of their social life in the village is sharing wealth and live together in a close relationship, helping one another. The Pumai Naga has always been community-oriented. They work together in the field, sleep in the dormitory, and eat and drink together. They are committed and always willing to extend help for the well-being of their village. Social service for their community was spontaneous and part of their community living. The undying zeal for voluntary service for the society and the poor build the bond of oneness and live together as one community in peace. Some of the voluntary services towards their community are the construction of new roads, playground, dormitory, watchtower. Besides, they also help build the house of those people who could not build their house and lend paddy to the needy without interest. They extend help to the weak and poor in labor and share their rice beer and paddy. Since they were economically self-sufficient, there was no beggar in the society. There was no social class distinction between the rich and poor in the society. So they lived together in peace and harmony. Conclusions. The Pumai culture is an accumulation of age-old thoughts and values. It is their common social heritage, transmitting from generation to generation through learning and practicing. The Pumai Naga has a rich cultural heritage passed down from generation through words of mouth. It is based on their age-old belief, philosophy, morals, and customs. Some of the Pumai distinct social heritage are folk songs, folk dances, feasts, traditional festivals, rules of behavior, ornaments, games, work, handicrafts, customs, and social status. The Pumai ancestral community life was consolidated, governed, and shaped by two traditional practices: God forbid and civic shame. When the two traditional practices governed the society, people live in harmony with one another. When we listen to other people about their community life, they have a glorious past. They discovered the core human philosophy and translated it as their cultural heritage. Although there were no formal schools and education like today, they are taught to work together, live together, help one another, sing together, and grow together as one community in their respective dormitory. However, today the rich cultural heritage of Pumai is slowly degrading in the present society as they are exposed to developed society and advanced people. The native people who live in remote villages slowly change their mindset due to various external forces such as conversion into a new religion and modern education. The coming of Christianity and modern education marked the new transformation of the ancestral socio-cultural life of Pumai Nagas. Christianity and modern education transform the old social values and ways of life. There are lots of positive changes that contributed to Pumai community life, and at the same time, some changes have brought adverse developments that caught between the new and the old. No doubt, change is inevitable, but it is said to know that some negative changes have devastated their community living and cultural heritage. Due to this effect, there are cultural conflicts and identity crises today in the present Pumai Naga community life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for acquainting us with valuable knowledge about Pumai Nagas. Now you can post your questions in chat box. Right now, I don't find any questions for you, but I have one. Because what I found a similarity. Because I have studied about the Paraja tribes, and I found a lot of similarity in these communities also, like the concept of dormitories, their rituals and tradition. Just out of the curiosity, I want to know that in Paraja tribe we have studied the concept of prize. And since you were the member of this community, to my Nagas, is this the concept is present in your community also?
Well, please repeat again the concept of
Like the bride price that bride is being paid. The concept of bride price.
okay,
That
no.
group. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I got your point. We don't have such thing. We don't demand anything. If the family is willing to offer something, yes, we see. There are two things when it comes to giving, like movable gift or immovable like properties, like house, field. These things we don't allow girls to inherit. Only boys inherit the immovable properties, but movable properties, if the family is willing to give, yes, they can. Yeah, they can give as gift, but it is not compulsory.
Okay, sir. Thank you for your answer. We have two questions in chat box. I will repeat it for you. First is, can you elaborate on the assertion that there was no class system among the Pumai Nagas?
Um,
Sir, you are not audible.
I should say yes. Why? Because stable. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now we can hear you.
Okay. I feel that there was no social distinction. Why? Because like in any festivals, like suppose when we talk about traditional festivals that our community have been celebrating, like during festivals, like there is no particular kind of place where rich people should sit or like poor people will sit. Like during the festivals, they mingle one another without any distinctions. Yes, at the same time, at the same time, like only the rich people can host the feast of merit. Why? Because the poor people, they cannot afford to feed the whole villagers. So obviously, those who perform, after they perform the feast of merit, they get kind of special respect from the society because they have host the feast of merit, but they did not take advantage over the poor people.
Okay, sir. The second question for you from Dr. Pankaj Sharma is, what's the future for this culture? Is there any apprehension for extinction?
Yes, I feel. Why? Because in today, in Pumai society particularly, especially the youngsters, as they move out from their village for studies or for any other purpose, they don't, I feel the youngsters, we don't value our cultures, our traditions. And we feel that like Western cultures are superior than our traditional values, our traditional practices. So now, and when we talk about our culture, especially the youngsters, we are no more interested. Even place like Delhi, we have our own church here in Delhi. So even inside the church, the youngsters, they prefer to speak in English rather than our mother tongue. So if the present trend continue, our culture might even get lost, or we will not able to connect our root if the present trends continue.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So these were the questions. And with this, we come to end of our 8th session. Once again, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude and thank you to all the participants, paper presenters, teachers for investing their valuable time in this webinar. And especially Professor Patnaik sir, without you, this seminar won't be possible. Thank you for this deeply insightful webinar. And also thank you, Venkat sir, for all your technical support. We are very grateful to have you. And we shall be meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. on the second day of the part 2nd of the national webinar. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Divya, for your maiden moderatorship, and you conducted really well. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir.
And
Thank
to
you.